Alright, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and as part of the Rankin Technical College AWD, or Application and Website Development Program, and in particular the AWD 1111.NET Framework with Web Databases course, I am creating a series of video presentations based on the book we will use for the course during the fall 2019 semester. That book is Pro ASP.NET MVC 5, an A-Press text by Adam Freeman. I am working my way through Chapter 8, and we are up to building the shopping cart. And as the author says here, the application is progressing nicely, but I cannot sell any products until I implement a shopping cart. So in this section, we will create the shopping cart experience, such as the one shown in 8.7. So we've got our stuff. We'll have an add to cart. We can add it. We can check out. We can continue shopping, etc. Okay. So, as mentioned on here on page 215, an Add to Cart button will be displayed alongside each of the products in the catalog. Clicking this button will show a summary of the products the customer has selected so far, including cost. At this point, the user can click the Continue Shopping to return to the product catalog, or click the Checkout Now button to complete and finish their order. A shopping cart is part of the business domain, so it makes sense to represent the cart by creating an entity in the domain model. So we want to go into our sportsstore.domain project, right mouse click, and add a class named cart.cs to the entities folder. Lots of stuff open here. Alright, so we're adding the class to our entities folder, and again we've been told to call that cart.cs. Want to make sure we're in sportscore.domain, and we are. Alright, that gives us just a simple start, and then we're supposed to go in, we're supposed to go in and change this so that it looks like what is shown here, and I'm going to make it bigger in just a moment. On the rest of page 215, and I believe there's even a little bit of code on 216. So don't worry yet. Go. All right. Take it from the top and see what the author mentions here about this. The cart class, in fact, let's go back up here. The cart class uses the cart line class right here, defined in the same file to represent a product selected by a customer and the quantity the customer wants to buy. So the product and the quantity. All right. The author has defined methods to add an item to a cart, remove an item that was previously placed in the cart, calculate the total cost of items in a cart, and reset the cart by removing all items. And that's what we saw here. There's the clear, there's computing the total cost, there's removing an item, there's adding an item. The next thing here on page 216 is the author is going to write a couple more unit tests. The cart class is relatively simple but has a range of important features that must work properly. A poorly functioning cart, basically if the cart doesn't work, you're undermining everything you're trying to do in your business. So let's grab this, copy it to the clipboard, bring up our unit tests. Looks like I might be missing something. Okay, put in that. Again, arrange, act, assert. Okay, not sure why I'm getting all those usings. All right. However, if the customer has already added a product to the cart, we want to increment the quantity, so we've got yet another one here. This is kind of getting out of, I'm spending too much time on something I'm not going to be going over with you anyway. So I do believe that when I do this with the class, we will not be putting this information in. I don't see the reason for doing that. All right, because again, if I'm not going to go over the information, then it almost seems as though spending the time doing that, I mean, it's kind of, I'm not going to say a waste. That really isn't fair at all. But it's time that could be better spent doing something else. We also need to check that the users can change their mind and remove products from a cart. So this is the bottom of page 217, and it goes on to page 218. I do think somewhere in here I goofed up as far as how I've got this stuff lined up, but I'm just going to leave it like that. Maybe I don't need that. I thought I did. The next behavior here is the ability to calculate the total cost. And then finally, to ensure that the contents of the cart are properly removed when it's reset. You'll notice that whenever I put that in like this, the system automatically ends that ending curly for me. I don't want it there, but it's putting it there for me, which is fine. So I've got to make sure that when I do that, I don't add the curly here. Okay. Sometimes, as in this case, the code required is longer and more complex than the type itself, but it says that shouldn't stop you from writing your tests. All right, I'm on page 219, adding a cart, adding the add to cart buttons. All right, let's do that, and then probably we'll end this lesson and have one or two more. So I need to edit the product summary.cshtml to add the buttons to the product listings. Changes are shown in figure 613. So this will be in our product summary, CS/HTML. There's our product summary. All right, and we want to put this right before that span, class equal lead, etc. So right here. And the author says he added a razor block that creates a small HTML form for each product in the listing. When the form is submitted, it will invoke the add to cart method, which will be implemented in a moment. By default, the begin form helper creates a form that uses a post. You can change this so it uses the get, but think carefully about doing so. The HTTP spec requires that get requests must be idempotent, meaning that they must not cause changes. And adding a product to a cart is definitely a change. So the last thing I'll mention in here is, as we go up here on the top of page 220, creating multiple HTML forms in a page. The author says here that using the HTML begin form helper in each product listing means that every add to cart is rendered in its own separate form element. This may be surprising to you if you've been developing ASP.NET web forms. Equally, there is no requirement to create a form for each button. However, since each form will post back to the same controller method, but with a different set of parameters, it is a nice and simple way to deal with button presses. So what we have left, starting on page 220, is to implement the cart controller. We will have to do that, and then we'll have to display the contents of the cart. So we've got about 5 or 6 more pages left in this chapter. Hopefully we can do that in about one more lesson. And I'll be back with that shortly.